first of all, thank you for rescheduling with us and kind of making this work. We're super excited to talk with you, and we're huge fans of the film, as you've probably heard from a lot of people. So first of all, congratulations. Oscars, we're excited. So congrats on everything.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's a real wild ride. We went to a lunch, and like Will Smith is at the next table, and I gotta say he laughed at one of my jokes, so I think we're gonna become best friends. But maybe he didn't hear it. Maybe he's laughing at something else. But no, it's been a really wild ride. It feels really incredible. And you sort of, think oftentimes you can get kind of jaded about stuff, but I was just like, the whole team has been like, throwing parties ever since we found out we're not very chill. But it's been really nice.
That's great. Yeah, no, I was so excited when I saw the Oscar nomination, and I think for us it was really cool to see a film about aspiring filmmakers get validated, and kind of that process. But then at the same time, a demographic of a filmmaker, a female filmmaker too, that wants to make movies, and because we need more of that, and to see that lifted up was really, really cool. And that's something that we do on this podcast. We talk a lot about filmmakers. Ryan right now, he's a filmmaker.
Nice.
And going to film school at CU Boulder. And
nice.
Then I'm just taking film classes, and we both have just loved making movies for a long time. So this movie was just like right up our alley from the very beginning.
I love it.
Because that's the way that we feel.
Yeah.
Well,
about movies.
Might I say, Carson has some great YouTube videos that he made when he was 12.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's in the same vein. Like, it was like watching that, it was like just those stupid like short films that you make when you're young, but you're out there and you're creating. That's all that matters. So that was really cool. So before we get into any of that conversation, I want to know your beginnings. How much influence did the Mitchells take off of you as a kid, wanting to make movies and kind of that passion?
Sure. Yeah. No. It's funny that you mentioned those. Me and my cousin had a series of I guess, I don't know, home movie videos. It was like a TV show. We kind of called it a TV show, but no one. And it was like we only showed it to our friends on VHS tapes. But it was based on Winchell's Donut House, which is like a chain of donut places in California. And we thought it was really funny because it sometimes seemed like the guy who was working there like slept in the dough. Like when you would come in, he would be like, "Hey man," and I was like, we just thought it was the funniest thing in the world, so we made a series about it. And it really was like, that was such a joyous, fun thing, because I was a sort of kind of like lonely little kid, much like Aaron, or that's the thing about Aaron, where he's calling people and he's like, "Do you want to talk to me about dinosaurs?" Yeah. Comes from real life a little bit, where I would call video game stores and be like, "Hello, do you want to talk about Battle Arena Toshinden for the PlayStation?" And they're like, "You called like 4 times already." And I'm like, "I don't have any friends." But so yeah, a lot of that is from my life, and I think one of the things that I think people respond to about Katie's character is that when you're an artist, you make dumb stuff, but you're trying so hard and you're taking it so seriously. It's like, if this dog wig doesn't get in by noon, the whole shot is ruined. So it's really cool. And I think, and also too, you're embarrassed about stuff. You don't want to show it. You're like, this sucks. But this is a good part at the end. Just keep watching. Right. And like that kind of like insecurity and stuff. Because it is very real. It's like, it's so in a lot of ways, making art is like a real privilege, because it's something you do if everything else is going pretty well. But on the other hand, it's scary as hell, man. Like to put something out there and be like, is this good? This is me, and we wanted to make a movie about that, and mostly family. This is based on my own actual crazy family, and I got started drawing. I was obsessed with like Ren and Stimpy and The Simpsons growing up, and so I just started drawing. And then the real thing that got me into that sort of showed me a pathway into the industry is I actually was on, it's gonna sound so insane, but these chat rooms. It was called the Palace chat room. And it was like you had these little cartoon avatars that would like talk to each other in word bubbles. It was so like, if you saw it, you'd be like, this is insane. What are you doing? But I actually met on there some people who are real cartoonists, like working in the industry. And then also it was just a bunch of, cartoon nerds too. So we would like trade stories and be like, dude, I found this guy, Aaron Springer. He's a storyboard artist on SpongeBob. I'm like, dude, I know he's a storyboard on SpongeBob. I watch the credits every day. So then we would like stalk him and like send him a letter and stuff. And we found him on ICQ, which is like a now dead service. It's like free AOL Instant Messenger. And it was really cool because it sort of showed me that like that being an art cartoonist was like a possibility, and that sort of is reflected in the movie where Katie sort of finds her people. Like I found my people in that weird chat room. and another one of us is an animator in Canada. So there's a couple of us in that little chat room that are
it's amazing,
trickled our way into the industry.
Were there any specific films growing up then that you looked at and then even now kind of look back on and have inspired you to this day? What are some of those films?
Oh yeah, man, I could go for days on it. I'll try to keep it limited. When I was I saw the first time I saw Bottle Rocket, I was really knocked out by it, and I couldn't stop watching it. Like I watched it like literally like one summer. I watched it like 60 times, like every night, psychotically. I don't know. And Katie has a little Lawn Wranglers pin on her backpack that nobody really noticed online, but I noticed, baby. And I really loved that movie, and there was something so specific about it, and it was like funny, but it was also dramatic. And I just really sort of grew to love Wes Anderson's movies. And I also I saw Magnolia for the first time, and that like was like the scene in 2001 Space Odyssey where you're just like colors are flying past my face, and I'm like, you could do this. They're just singing at camera and frogs are falling from the sky. Like there's no rules, so I was so excited by that. And so and then also just, in terms of animation, it's like The Simpsons, Pixar movies, like loved, I've seen all of those audio commentary tracks thousands of times. And Studio Ghibli movies. Those are sort of my biggest. Grave of the Fireflies and Whisper of the Heart are two to shout out that aren't normally seen because they're not by Miyazaki, but those are incredible films. So yeah, those are some.
That's great. Yeah. A short little side note. Ryan, when I think it was one of the first times that he came over to my house in high school, probably with another friend. I think they went into my room, and my entire wall, I think there's probably 2 walls full of Simpsons toys.
It still is.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Yeah. So I was like, that was like, and when I got a girlfriend in high school, I was like, do I need to like change this at all or whatever? I was like, no, not at all. You don't change that. So like,
sorry, I don't know. I'm screaming.
No, yeah, because you got to keep your passions. And I'm still a high schooler. I literally have my backpack right here. Still a college student with a Bart Simpson.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Backpack.
I got a Mr. Sparkle up in my oh no, it's in storage. But I used to have a Mr. Sparkle up.
That's great. So it's cool because those things that inspire you are great. You need to keep those passions. So it's cool to me though that you take inspiration from these TV shows, but then Pixar, and then you end up working for Pixar and then working on a show like Gravity Falls that are like the exact types of shows that you'd kind of dream of making. What was that experience like?
Oh yeah, it was really wild. Like when I went to, because I went to Cal Arts, I basically went to an art school called California College of the Arts, which is different than CalArts, annoyingly. This one's in San Francisco. And it's funny, the second I left, they got an animation program. I'm like, what, were you just waited? Were they hiding and waiting for me to leave? But anyway, so then I went to CalArts because I figured that was the only way I would ever get a job. And I got rejected the first time, and then I made it the second time. And my whole goal there was like working at Pixar, because I wanted to work at Pixar and make comics. That was like going to be my life. It was like storyboard artist at Pixar, making comics at night. And I worked really hard, and I made some student films, and they went. 2 were good for what they were, and 1 is a nightmare that will never see the light of day. But so I made and one of the shorts went over really well. It's still, people still watch it on YouTube all the time. It's called Work.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we love it.
But yeah, so I made that, and then Pixar was like, "Hey, do you want an internship?" And I was like, oh. Like, I'd never been happier in my life. I was like shivering. One of my friends like put his hands on my cheeks. He's like, "You wanted it so bad." I'm so happy for you. Kid Justin, he's really cool. But and it's funny, I did the internship, and let me tell you, my friend, if you're ever like looking for inspiration, or just like you feel like things are going really bad for you, remember this story, because I did the Pixar internship, and it was a disaster. Like, I absolutely got crushed. Everyone was better at drawing than me. My assignments were always like late. I like spent my birthday like on the floor crying, like I could never do this. But I really loved animation, and I loved writing, and I think I found out the plus side of that, though, is sometimes you have to go through something traumatic like that to learn what you're good at. Like I was way better at writing and doing directing type stuff than I was at drawing and storyboarding. Because I was good enough at storyboarding because I cared a lot, but I was like neither fast nor a good drawer, or good enough to sort of be at a place like that. So Alex Hirsch from Gravity Falls heard that I was funny or something, and he offered me a job. And he initially offered me a job as a writer, and then I just never went home, because I was like, if I'm on the show needs to be great. I need to do everything I can do to make it great, because it's going to be on my IMDb, and I don't want anything bad on my IMDb. Like, I'm a real psycho, guys. So I just I never left the office. Like, I was there, I came in early, I left at like 3 a.m. It's inadvisable from a health standpoint, but advisable from a making the show better standpoint, I guess. Because we really did sort of like, between the hours of 6 and 3 a.m. is sort of when we actually made a lot of the show. And that was really, in a lot of ways, this perfect ideal situation. And I will say it to any, you guys or any listeners who are students, like making short content. I mean, like Gravity Falls wasn't that short, it was 20 minutes, but like, I remember Alex talked to me when I started the job, and he's like, I know you want to make movies, and this isn't a movie, but think of this like going to the gym. Like, you're going to make 25 little movies. And that made a lot of sense to me. And it was totally true. It really trained me to make films, because there's such a high turnover. Like, you can't obsess. Like, when you're making a student film, you obsess over every little detail, and you're like, what's gonna happen? Oh, will this line go this way or this way? But when you're just like at a TV show, it's like, you gotta go. Like, go make a decision. Is it good? Make it better. If it's time, gotta go. Make the next one. Make the next one better than the last one. Because like our first episode that we wrote on Gravity Falls is called Legend of the Gobblewonker, and it's not that great. It is okay for what it is, but it was really like us learning how to make a show, and then the subsequent episodes got better. And I think if I were just making a film on my own and it wasn't that great, I'd get really bummed out, be like, oh man, I blew it. But because there were so many other ones to make, you didn't have time to dwell or obsess. You're just like, make the next one, make the next one, make the next one. So it's just like, if you and your buddy, if you're at school, just make as many films as possible. And if you're not at school, like set up something with the buddy where it's like, hey, let's make a film a week for 3 months. You know what I mean? And you'll learn more than you'll learn at any film school. And that is, I will say, because people are like, oh, CalArts, what's the deal? CalArts, I had some of the greatest teachers you could ever imagine, but a lot of my teachers at CalArts were like, just kind of checked out, or they, you know, they were working and they didn't have a lesson plan, or, you know, whatever. But the thing that teaches you, and that's not, look, if any of my teachers are listening, you were great. You were the good ones. Because I did have a lot of great teachers, but all that is to say, it's like the reason why I think CalArts makes so many directors is because they force you to do every single part of the process. Like, and you have to make 4 films, not 1, but 4. And like, one of those is going to be terrible. And then the first one is going to be you figuring out how to make a film. And then maybe your 3rd or 4th one is good. And that is really invaluable too, because it also teaches you how to edit. Like, you know, because now when I go into the edit bay, either in Gravity Falls or at my, or at, you know, Mitchell's, I knew how to edit. I was like, oh yeah, do a razor cut here and blah, blah, blah. And do a soft fade here and stuff like that. And the editor was like, oh, cool. You know what you're talking about, you know? So I think that that's like a really important thing. And that was something that I learned at CalArts. And I would say to any kids out there, just make a lot of stuff, even if it's bad. Like, we had these 24-hour films that we made, or 48-hour films. It's really good to make a 48-hour film because it forces you to realize, like, oh, I could make like a 4-minute film in 48 hours if I wanted to. It's psychotic, and the thing will be bad, but you'll learn something.
Yeah.
Anyway. I think this is great advice, and I think, you know, I'm actually making a stop motion piece for my thesis.
Oh, cool.
And I'm feeling exactly what you said as far as a student, where I'm fixating on all these little things.
Yeah.
And something that I learned, and even from you talking, is I really don't want this film to be the best thing I ever make.
Yes.
I want to make these mistakes and grow from it. So I think what you said is perfect. And with that, you know, Mitchell's obviously inspired me, and it's inspired Carson. A couple other animated films from recent years that have inspired us both have been the Lego Movie and Spider-Verse, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And from our research, when you met Christopher Miller and Phil Lord, who we absolutely adore, you had a complete animatic done with you voicing all of the characters within the film.
Yeah.
I'm curious, from that process, what was it like meeting both of them and working with them, but also where you took the film from the animatic to the screen?
No, that's a great question. You know, I was like you. I mean, those guys are like my heroes. You know, it's like me and Alex from Gravity Falls would be like, these guys made an obscure cable show that nobody watched, but was actually good. We're making an obscure cable show that nobody watches, but it's actually like you know, that now they're ruling Hollywood. How do we get what they have? You know, because we just love all their stuff. And it was wild that they even watched it. I was like, oh, that's cool. You watched it. Rad. And then they were like, you know, is it okay if Chris and Phil produce it? Yes, of course. What are you, high? So that was really wonderful. And also the amazing thing about those guys is, like, they did not disappoint in the slightest.
Wow.
Like, they're so kind, and they really like put on a film school for us a little bit, where it was like, you know, talking about like how the movie, you know, the movie from an animatic to the final on screen. Yeah. It's interesting because if you watch that animatic, I wish I could like release it or something, but it's like, if you watch that animatic, you'd be like, that was pretty good. All right. You know, but it wasn't like unassailable. You know, like like we were proud of it and we thought it was funny. And also, if you saw it, you'd be like, that's a lot like the movie that was on the screen. It's just the movie that was on the screen was way better. And it's because we went deeper with the characters, and a big thing, which is like, it's so like obvious, but here's sort of a writing tip, is like, I think when you're a student, you're like, oh, writing is about conflict, so you have characters just screaming at each other or yelling at each other or just being dicks to each other, like you know, go to hell, Poindexter. I don't know, nobody's Poindexter anymore, but it's like, and in real life, even if you're really mad at someone, you never talk to them like that. You know what I mean? You just kind of like, you give them a weird look, or you're like, dude, whatever. And then you walk out of the room or whatever, or you try to connect with them. You're like, that's not what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying, or whatever. And the movie, in the first draft of the movie, it was really, the character's really argumentative. Like Katie was like yelling it. And there's this one joke that was so funny where it was like, I think, I forget what it was. Oh yeah. It was like the Posies, this perfect family, was talking to Linda, and they're like, oh, where's your husband and daughter? And then they're like, oh, they're just having a friendly chat. And then Katie in the background is like, I am literally going to murder you. And it got a crazy laugh, like 10 out of 10 laugh. Like people in the audience were losing it, but we had to kill it because it made you think like, why do you even want to repair this relationship? They don't even like each other.
Right.
And it's like, because like ultimately you had to kind of almost structure it like a romantic comedy where the audience is rooting for them to get together. You know, like you need the audience to like look at the daughter and the dad and be like, just tell each other how you feel and work it out. Like, it'll be fine. I want to see you, you know, together like you were in the beginning in the home movies, you know? And that was sort of when and even though I think we had some of that in the first version, we didn't have enough. And they really sort of also just it was a real like masterclass in like how to deal with the studio, you know, like, and because sometimes I think as a, you know, when you read about studios and executives, you're like, these people are the enemy of art. They're trying to destroy us. But really, they're just kind of like nice people that want the movie done and want the movie to be good, you know? And if you just sort of treat them like teammates and say, here's how we're gonna make a movie that everyone in America, in the world, is gonna want to see. Like, you know, people love innovation. So we're gonna have, you know, these guys are trying to do all this crazy stuff where the characters are drawing on the screen and it's a new art style and all that stuff. Like, so if they want innovation, like this is an asset, not a liability. Like, people will want this. They're not going to reject the movie because it's different. They're going to embrace the movie because it's different. And they really gave us cover in a lot of that stuff because, you know, as much as people in the studio are great, they are also like paying a lot of money for this, and they don't want it to be a goose egg, and they see it looking kind of weird, and they're like, you know, and they get scared. And Chris Miller always says, like, you want people acting out of greed and not fear. But then anyway, they did that kind of stuff, and they also sort of showed us like how to let emotional stuff play, you know, like, because sometimes like we would, you know, we'd be like, we have to get the movie down to 90 minutes, and then we would cut the emotional stuff down a little bit, where like just looks wouldn't last as long. And it's really like the difference between someone crying and someone not crying could just be holding on a shot for another second, you know, and seeing the character, the emotion land on the character's face and be like, oh, my daughter just said that, you know, versus like a little smile, like, cut, versus like, you know, nobody can say this is an audio medium. I did a short smile and then I said cut, versus like you see the dad sort of realizing what his daughter just said, thinking about it, and then smiling at her and having a real reaction that you would see in real life. And that sort of like puts it over the edge of like, oh, now I'm crying, versus like, oh, I feel a brief thing in my chest. So that it was great from that standpoint. I know that was the world's longest answer. I'm really sorry.
No, this is great advice. You know, something that makes this movie so great, and Ryan and I could gush over this forever, and I'm sure you could as well too, because this is a dream for a director, is having the voice cast that you have, you know, including Dana McBride, Maya Rudolph, Eric Andre, Olivia Colman, Fred Armisen. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, you even got Conan O'Brien, like he's our hero.
Carson's wearing a awesome shirt right now too.
Yeah. So
yeah,
like,
baby. Team Coco.
He's the best. Yep. So what was that like? And then in specific, Ryan and I just adore Danny McBride. What was it like working with him on this project?
It was awesome. I mean, he could not. I mean, it's so funny. He plays like the world's biggest dicks, and he's so nice. Like, he's the nicest guy. He was like, hey man, come out. We'll have, you know, he's like, he lives in Charleston, South Carolina, And he's like, come on out, man. We'll have some tequila. We'll ride around the golf cart. I'll show you Charleston. And then we're just like, drinking tequila in a golf cart. And he's like waving to people like he's the mayor. And he's like, showing us around Charleston. And, but he's also an awesome improviser. So it's like that whole scene where the characters are, okay, staring contest. No, just, you can blink. It's just eye contact, and then like look at Monch, look at him right there. That's the spirit. That's how you do it. All that stuff was Danny improvising.
Wow.
And we just kind of cut it together. One of our editors is really great, Doug Nicholas, cut it together. And to just black cards, it says like family stares at each other weirdly, and then you just heard the audio, and you're like, oh, that could be really funny. Now let's have someone draw it. And so sometimes it would work backwards like that too. And that's actually something that I think I learned from Chris and Phil, and I would sort of say to any film student or whatever, it's like, let your collaborators collaborate, like, especially, I mean, it helps when they're like amazing, but, but it's like, it's always good to see what somebody else can bring to it versus like, I need to extract this line reading out of this person. How am I going to do it? Versus like, how would you say it? Or, like, give me 10 versions of it, or like, say it in your own words, or, yeah, let's improv. Like, what if he didn't do that or whatever it is, like, for instance, the scene that Danny did all that improv about the staring contest was supposed to be a scene where he was like talking about his daughter's laptop and technology and stuff. And it just felt dead because it was like a guy talking about technology, like the problem with phones these days. And it was like,
right.
It just sounded, it was just boring to even hear. So we were like, well, let's try a new version of the scene. And then we just like, we're batting around stuff, and he came up with that. It was like awesome. And we're like, oh yeah, let's put that in the movie. So it's like, so I do think it's like, really, really let your collaborators be artistic partners and not just, like doing a job, because then they get invested in it. Because he's like, oh, you're using my improv. Oh, I'll do more improv. Or I wouldn't say it that way. Maybe I'd say it this way. And then all of a sudden, like, he feels more like the character. And honestly, people's voice takes are better when they're engaged like that, because they're like all fired up and they're like, ooh, maybe I'll throw that in. Maybe I'll throw this in. And like, oh, this is fun. I'm playing, versus like, I'm in a cold, dark room with a script and I have to recite the words like a prisoner. Because sometimes it's like that. And you have to like, and because sometimes also I think actors, are used to situations where they just have to sit in a room and read the lines, and you have to like get them excited about it. It's like, how can you get, and that's across the board. It's like, how do you get your collaborators as excited as you about your project? And like, to me, the thing I learned is I just had to be like the world's best salesman to convince everyone else to be excited about the movie as I was. I'm like, look, it's based on my parents. Here's a funny story about him. Bing, bang, boom. Look at this art. Holy crap, you're gonna love it. And because I literally was so excited about it, and I just wanted other people to feel that. And when other people are excited, they do amazing work. Like, the team is so good. Like, the movie looks better than I ever could imagine. And it's like, I think one of the reasons is we picked amazing people, and they did an amazing job on their own, but I also think they're all excited.
And I think something you said, and I know you said it in past interviews, is having that feeling of keeping that motivation throughout the process. Because I know this was in all a 6-year process, I believe. How important is it to keep that a personal project to a degree, to have that motivation there at all times?
Yeah, I think that's super important. I mean, I really think you gotta have a burning fire in your chest to tell this story. You know what I mean? And if you're working on something and you don't have that, figure out how to get that. Because this movie, I was like, I was thinking about it kind of, I knew that it was going to be a really long process. And I was like, well, I love my family. I've got infinite stories about them. All I want to do is like draw my dad in funny situations and, and sort of like, honor my mom and, like just basically make a movie about how much I love them. And I knew that that would power me over the course of these years. Because we made this movie for 6 years, I thought there was going to be like 3 checkpoints, like show it to this person if they say yes, show it to this person they say yes, show it to this person they say yes, and then you make the movie. It was like fucking 190 checkpoints. Like it was wild. And you know, just because it's a big investment, and they're like, ugh, this kid's never made anything before. And also, I can reveal this secret. This is here's a real fake it till you make it situation. I had never done I was creative director on Gravity Falls, which meant I was like kind of like an EP. I was sort of like an assistant showrunner, or not assistant showrunner, but like kind of a co-pilot. I was like the co-pilot, right?
Uh-huh.
I had never directed before, but the word had director in it. And I just never let anyone think about that too much. And I one time told my producer that, and he's like, Mike, close the door. Never say that out loud ever again. Like, I could tell he was scared. He's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so since the release of this movie, it's had this awesome life on Netflix, and it's gained a lot of following since then. But including that, you've definitely got some high praise from people within the industry. One of those people being Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, dude.
An incredible filmmaker. What was that like? That to me, that was random as a viewer. I was like, man, the fact that he loves this movie so much is so cool, first off, but then getting to talk with him about the film, what was that like?
It was unbelievable. I hugged him yesterday. It was crazy. he's like, hey, come here, and he hugged me, and I'm like, of course, hugging me, because he's such an amazing filmmaker. Like, and I kind of understand what, because like Bong Joon-ho also likes the movie, which is also wild, but like, wow. I kind of understand why those guys like it, because it's sort of you know, like if you look at like Pan's Labyrinth, it's a very personal story, but it's like mixed with these fantastical elements, and our movie is like that too, you know. So basically, you know, A plus B equals C, which is our movie is as good as Pan's Labyrinth. No, I'm kidding. But no, it was really wild, because the other thing that was really cool in this conversation, like, he noticed all these things, these little things that we put in that most people don't notice. He's like, you know, I really love the acting. I could see, you know, a character thinking when they're, you know, holding their finger and feeling nervous. And I was like, oh my God, it took so long to get that shot. And I'm so touched that you noticed, Guillermo del Toro, amazing Academy Award-winning genius filmmaker. So that was really wild, and it's been one of the most fun things about this whole thing. And also, but it goes the other way too. I'm like, I wonder if Paul Thomas Anderson saw it. I bet he didn't like it. He's like, he's married to Maya Rudolph. I bet it's played in their house at least once. But also focus on the positive here. No, I don't know. Maybe Paul Thomas Anderson loved it. I don't know. That was so nice. I mean, because we're all movie nerds, so it's like, you know, I have The Devil's Backbone on, you know, Blu-ray and all this stuff. Like, you know, it was really wild.
So, I mean, you get the Oscar nomination, and then does it set in yet? Has it all settled into you where you're like, wow, this film that I worked on with a lot of great artists is nominated for Best Animated Film? Has it set in? Does being at the luncheon, seeing all these great filmmakers bring it into perspective yet, or are you kind of still on cloud 9?
No, I mean, I will say, I'm really trying to enjoy this moment right now, because you know, because some people are like, well, then wait until Oscar night. I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know what's gonna happen. You know, like there's a lot of good movies. Let's just like chill out and enjoy getting nominated. You know, because it's like, you don't want to pin all your hopes and dreams on something, and then you're like, and then you like forgot to enjoy it on the way there, you know. But we're, you know, it's really cool. Like it's been really sweet too with the crew, because it's like I love the team that made this movie, like, more than anything. Like they're such wonderful artists, and they put their heart and soul into it. And it's like, to be able to like go to a fancy award show where we're like sitting next to Javier Bardem and like saying like, hey Lindsay, let me take a picture of you, and then zooming into Javier Bardem behind her, like taking a picture like a tourist, you know, was like so fun, because it's like it feels like I'm so happy that we could all have that experience together, because everybody did work so hard on the movie. And it's like, you know, everyone could have hated the movie. Like, I don't know, we didn't know. We it's like you make these movies and it's like sending out a message in a bottle and you just hope someone gets it. And it's been really cool to see like lots of people getting it, lots of people loving it. It's sort of more than we ever thought. So I will say I'm still pumped.
Yeah, we're so excited for you. We're going to be cheering for you on Oscar night, no matter what the result is, just to be able to see you there. That's so cool.
We're going to be zooming in with our phones on the TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's Mike. I think one of the coolest elements of your film deals with Katie, and I think her attempt to find her people, kind of as you say in the show. And for us, something that we always do on the podcast is we talk about what advice our guests have for aspiring filmmakers. And I think it's so pertinent with Katie because she's searching for that so much. She just wants to find someone who gets her and gets her craft. For you and your process throughout becoming a filmmaker, what advice do you have for people that are growing up wanting to be filmmakers, but maybe don't know the direction they want to head in?
Oh my God, I have so much to say. I'm gonna talk really fast like the Micro Machines guy, and you can just speed it up. And I'll just talk for 45 minutes and you condense it down to 10 seconds. But I will say one thing is if at the top of my guys, check it out. I have a Twitter account, but at the top of my I'm very cool. At the top of my Twitter account is this class that I did. That's like a story class for and it's sort of a story class for animators, but it serves as like, it's kind of like all of the advice I have about storytelling. And I would say if you're interested in film at all, check that out. It's free. It's the exact class I gave to a bunch of CalArts first years. So you could kind of, get a little bit of the CalArts experience through that. But the main thing I would say is just like, it's just kind of what I said earlier. It's like, just make stuff. And there's like an Ira Glass quote I think is really great, which is like, you get into a creative field because you have great taste. And then because you love movies and you're like, oh, I love this and I love this. And that's what I want to aspire to this, this, and this, and this. I want to be as good as, Hayao Miyazaki or whatever. But you're gonna suck for years and years, like 10 years you'll be bad, but you're getting better, it's like never forget. And the way to get better, I sort of say in this talk is like you basically build a bridge out of the corpses of your failures. You know what I mean? Like you just sort of like fill it, like there's a gap between you and success or making good stuff. And in the middle is a chasm. But if you just fail quickly and learn from your failures by like just making a lot of stuff, like make a film, forget about it, make another one. That's what we did on Gravity Falls. We're just like, okay, we tried that one, wasn't as great as we wanted, but let's learn from it and make another one and learn from it, make another one, learn from it, make another one. And did that in art school with CalArts. I did that when I was like drawing and trying to get good at drawing, where I would like make these like little assignments for myself where it's like, and I do think like getting a buddy is, if you're in film school, great, do film school. If you're not in film school, get a buddy and say, let's make a movie a week for 3 months or whatever. And it's like, you'll learn so much. Like I did that with writing. I did this thing where I wrote a different scene every day for 30 days. And I leveled up it was like, it's like in an RPG when you're like, oh, I'm going to kill some bad guys and just, gain experience points. Like I upped myself 3 levels in that month, And so I would just say, make a bunch of stuff, as much stuff as you can, then show it to friends, get feedback from them. But when you show it to them, tell them what you're going for. Because sometimes when you show stuff to friends, you say, what do you think? They'll be like, I wouldn't have done that. And you're like, well, that doesn't fucking help. But if you say, hey, I was going for a horror comedy, what do you think? And they could be like, well, the horror part is great, the comedy part needs work, or whatever, and then just do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And don't worry that the last thing wasn't as good as you wanted it to be. Just make the next one better. Like, because you get in this thing, especially as a student, you're like, I'm going to go back and fix my student film. You'll never go back. Like, just let it die. Bury it in the ditch. behind. I'm all about murder metaphors, but yeah, just let it die and sort of and make new stuff, and it'll be better than the thing you made that was bad.
It's incredible advice, and I guess, you know, the last thing I'll ask, kind of leading off, so you can go do what you got to do today. Are there any types of films, any genres that you want to tackle moving forward? Does anything interest you?
Oh yeah.
Anything else you wanna tackle?
No, I mean, I'm really excited about, you know, it's like we were able to push animation with this movie in a way that was really exciting, and I just want to like keep sprinting in that direction and, you know, tell new stories. And I'd really love to like tell these like weirdo adult stories where we're like using animation in new ways and trying to like break new ground and do things people have never done before. But also just in terms of genres and stuff, I really would like to make some weirdo David Lynch horror thing. But I, you know, and I think that would be really fun and really wild in animation. Just like I think an animated horror movie would be awesome. So those are a few things.
That excites me a lot. Yeah. We are very excited.
Get fired up, baby. Sorry, I'm sure that people are throwing their headphones off right now.
Well, we really appreciate you talking with us. Like we said, as aspiring filmmakers, you really fueled, I think, that in us through this film, but then also just talking with you. It's like, it's just amazing to see after this long process, you know, doing all this press, talking about this movie. You could easily, you know, kind of be tired of talking about this film.
I'll talk about it till the day I die, baby.